Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. Today's Thursday, March 17th, and I am your host, Josh Newberg. I'm live in Nashville. Steve, as always, is live from Indianapolis, and we're back for another loaded episode after a very busy weekend of recruiting visits. Before we get started, guys, do me a favor real quick. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. There is not a better channel on YouTube for you to get your college football news, so jump on board and hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in the most authentic reporter in the business, national analyst here at On3, Steve Wiltfong. Steve, we got to talk quarterbacks because Jared Curtis, he spent a few days in Eugene earlier in the week. Then about midweek, he spent a few days in Athens. Weekend's over. You had a chance to talk to your sources. You talked to the family. What's the latest on Jared Curtis and his recruitment?
Well, both places continue to make Jared Curtis feel at home. And his mom said that she does not envy him making his college decision. After these two visits, look, he went out to Oregon for 3 days. They got a chance to get out and about in Eugene, spend some time in nature, get around Will Stein and that coaching staff, talk offensive philosophy, how he can flourish in that scheme. Get around Dan Lanning, make the family comfortable with the Oregon Ducks. He loves the trajectory of the program, his relationship with that coaching staff, and the way that Oregon has been recruiting. I think the Ducks led coming into these visits. Georgia, obviously been committed to the Bulldogs, been there countless times. His family loves Kirby Smart and that staff. It was another great visit to get around the program, to get back around Mike Bobo, to see firsthand the young receivers that Georgia's recruiting, guys that he could be throwing the ball to, an opportunity to come in and compete right away under center. Also exciting about Georgia. Sitting down and talking things out with Kirby Smart. Now I think Jared Curtis goes home, talks things over with his family, his representation, and tries to make his college decision. I think it's going to come sooner than later. Oregon led coming into these final two visits. I haven't heard differently. I think there's some optimism around Athens. I think there's some nervous energy around Eugene right now with Jared Curtis, who's going to come off the board soon. And his commitment's certainly going to impact some other recruitments moving forward.
NIL is certainly the wild card in this recruitment, but how do you think he weighs some of these important factors like NIL, like relationships, like development?
And proximity to home is
location,
also a factor in this one. Look, I think Jared Curtis wants to feel very connected with the coaches that are going to coach him. I think he wants to go to a place that's going to bring the best out of him as a player. I think he wants to be surrounded by great players, and that's why you have these two programs here at the end with so much track record of recent and historic purposes for him to go through. I just think after he decommitted from Georgia in the fall, it was Oregon that emerged. And there's been a little bit of a back and forth with these two programs over the last several months. And they're dotting I's and crossing T's on this thing right now. I do think that coming into this week, it was up to Georgia to kind of change where things stood. But they certainly gave Georgia an opportunity to do that, spending 3 full days on campus. And his family absolutely loves Georgia, proximity to home. Kirby Smart, Mike Bobo. So we'll see if the Bulldogs were able to rally down the stretch and bring this one full circle.
All right, guys, in the comment section, give us your best guess. Where do you think Jared Curtis is going to end up? Will he be a dog or a duck? Let us know. Let's move on to the number 4 ranked quarterback in the country, Ryder Lyons. He has a top 3 of BYU, Oregon, and USC. But, Steve, visits are coming, and could they shake up this recruitment?
Well, right now, Ryder Lyons is viewed as a 2027 recruit because he's going to take an LDS mission following his senior year. But if Jared Curtis doesn't go to Oregon, I think you're going to see the Ducks hit the gas even more with Ryder Lyons in this recruitment. He already said it's his best relationship with Coach Will Stein and that staff. He feels the love from Oregon and how important of a target he is for their football program. He did tell me this weekend that he almost committed to USC. The on-3 RPM favors the Trojans. What Lincoln Riley's done historically with quarterbacks and offense still carries a lot of weight with him. His brother goes to school at USC. So there's a lot of exciting things about the Trojans in this recruitment as well. BYU is more than a dark horse. They had a great season. He's been over there Sisters went to school there. Family went to school there. A lot of ties to BYU. So I could certainly see him ending up at BYU as well. And then you got three more programs that are strongly in the mix. Ole Miss, he's going to visit. Spending time around Ryder Lyons, he just kind of seems like a Lane Kiffin kind of quarterback, a guy that's got a lot of confidence, a guy that likes to rip it all over the yard, a guy that can extend plays, be a playmaker. He just kind of reminded me of Jackson Dart and Matt Corral and those just uber confident guys that just like to sling it all over. He's going to visit Ole Miss, so we'll see what kind of move they make. Michigan is a contender here, and so is Ohio State. He said that Chip Kelly was talking to him every day, and that is picked up with Coach Fessler, and certainly what Ryan Day's done with quarterbacks, kind of similar to Lincoln Riley, is exciting to him. So you got your two tiers in the Ryder Lyons sweepstakes. If you're asking me to handicap it, I would maybe give Oregon the best odds right now, but it's a race that continues. The odds continue to change.
Yeah, I feel like Michigan's a team to watch here. Just like you said at the beginning, with him taking that mission and becoming essentially a 2027, it sets up really nice with the take of Bryce Underwood just a cycle ago. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about number 7 ranked quarterback Brady Smigiel. He was a former Florida State commitment that reopened things about 6 weeks ago now, and over the weekend he dropped a top 4.
Yeah, my on-3 RPM is on Washington right now for Brady Smigiel. He was on the Huskies campus 2 weekends ago for a massive junior day. He feels really connected to Jed Fish, Coach Doherty, and that staff. I do think that Washington is doing some things from an infrastructure standpoint to make things exciting for their top recruits as well. I think he feels connected to a lot of the guys that they're recruiting and sees an offense that he could really flourish in at Washington. South Carolina, he's going to visit them later this month. He's going to be at Michigan spring game. So those are 2 opportunities for those programs to make a move. And then UCLA, the local program. He's been over to UCLA a couple times. Deshaun Foster and that staff have some exciting things going, the opportunity to stay home. But I like Washington right now, and we'll see if the other 3 programs can make a move over the spring and summer. There is no decision timeline for Brady Smigiel. He committed to Florida State once when that felt right. Whenever time feels right with these other programs, he'll hop in the boat and start recruiting as well.
All right, let's talk about Jayden O'Neal. The current Oklahoma Sooner commitment could become a major QB domino once, Jared Curtis comes off the board, Bo Bentley. There's a couple movements that could cause Jayden O'Neal to move off of his commitment to Oklahoma. Break it down for us, Steve.
I think it's trending that way regardless right now for Jayden O'Neal in Oklahoma. He was at Georgia this past week for a couple days, and that visit blew him and his camp out of the water. I think Georgia is the program that's trending for Jayden O'Neal right now. We'll see what happens with Jared Curtis. Jayden O'Neal's got several other schools putting the full court press on him as well. Florida State is one that I have a keen eye on. He is going to visit the Seminoles this spring. I could see them really rising the ranks. Auburn is another program that's in the mix for Jayden O'Neal. I expect him to be on the plains this spring checking out Auburn. But right now, it's Georgia that has the momentum for Jayden O'Neal. Bo Bentley, I like where Oklahoma stands. He's coming off a really good visit to LSU. Now he's at Ohio State this week. On3's number 5 passer. Those are the 3 schools that are really emerging for Bo Bentley. He's been at Oklahoma twice already this calendar year. Grew up rooting for the Sooners. He was Coach Arbuckle's first offer. He was Coach Arbuckle's first offer. Certainly likes the way Coach John Mateer has developed under Coach Arbuckle. Thinks he can flourish in that offense as well. So I still give the odds to Oklahoma, but LSU and Ohio State are pushing the Sooners for Bo Bentley.
All right. Quarterback recruiting across the country is heating up as the temperatures heat up across the country as well. Let's talk about the On3 industry number 1 overall recruit, offensive tackle Jackson Cantwell. We're talking about him because he begins his spring visit tour today. He kicks it off in Coral Gables on Monday. Where else will he be this week, Steve?
He's also going to visit Michigan and Ohio State, and these are places he's very excited to see spring practice and continue building relationships with those coaching staffs. He's been to Georgia a ton. He's been to nearby Missouri several times. He wished he could get to Oregon over this week too, but he just wasn't able to pull all four together. So he starts at Miami, visited there during the fall. Miami's been rising in this recruitment since the fall. I think from an NIL standpoint, they'll be where they have to be for Jackson Cantwell. He loves Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabel's partnership, the way that those two coach the offensive line. And he's just excited to get back around the program and see how he fits in with the coaches and players. Same with Michigan and Ohio State. Sharon Moore, the head coach, his offensive line background similar to Mario Cristobal. He loves the style of play in the Big Ten, that smash mouth style. And then him and Grant Newsome have been doing a lot of chalk talks, Michigan's offensive line coach. So he's getting really comfortable with the Wolverines. And we've said on the whip around, they're a dark horse, a major dark horse alongside Georgia and Oregon for Jackson Cantwell. And then Ohio State, building a fast relationship with Tyler Bowen, similar to Michigan. He visited there in December. He's excited to get back. Ohio State's one of the 6 finalists that does not have an official visit scheduled. He has them locked in with Miami, Michigan, Missouri, Georgia, and Oregon.
Let's talk some UGA recruiting because Georgia hosted some of the nation's top talent over the weekend. Steve, what's the latest intel after a busy weekend in Athens?
Well, the big storyline is obviously 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis, the number 1 passer in the land. He visited Georgia for 3 days at the end of the week. I think he's in decision mode now. Will it be Oregon? Will it be Georgia? I felt like Oregon led coming into these final 2 visits. Saw Oregon at the beginning of the week, Georgia at the end of the week. But they had a fabulous time, felt at home around Kirby Smart and the staff. Was it enough to flip the script as he goes in and talks to his family and representation about Oregon, Georgia? I know there's some folks around him that would love to see him be a dog. So we'll see what happens with Oregon and Georgia here. Rodney Dunham, the number 1 player in North Carolina, the number 3 edge rusher in the On3, the number 7 player overall. He was also on campus out of Charlotte Myers Park. This was a visit that he has been looking forward to. He said it was amazing. Talked about the culture, the track record of winning, said Athens is an amazing town, but really pointed to the development and how well-rounded Georgia's players are. South Carolina and Tennessee have been mainstays at the top, but they have to look out for Georgia and Notre Dame with Duke and Manny Diaz, the dark horse for Rodney Dunham, a terrific baseball player, football player, and student. He's the total package. Where will he end up? It could be Georgia. It was a great visit. It was also a great visit for on 300 linebacker Nick Abrams. He is from Maryland. He is looking strongly at SEC programs like Georgia, Alabama, and Texas A&M. And the way that Georgia practiced really stood out to him. His conversations with Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann really moved the needle. It's a place where he feels like he could get the best development in the country. He'll definitely visit again for an official. Obviously, Georgia landed an in-state commitment receiver. Brady Marchese jumped in the fold. Bodney Cleveland is a touted defensive lineman that was on campus. Same with the number 7 linebacker in the land, Shadarius Tootle. He's committed to Auburn, but he says he's definitely going to be back for an official visit. Loves the way that Georgia treats their players, is excited about the way they practice. He sat in on meetings. Georgia moving the needle with the potential flip target, Shadarius Tootle.
All right, great stuff there on the Georgia Bulldogs.
The Wiltfong Whiparound is sponsored by Game Time. Game Time is the hot ticket app for fans that are looking for those last-minute, hard-to-find, hard-to-get tickets. It's tournament season. Looking to be at the biggest games in March with friends or loved ones? Game Time has you covered. And Game Time is about maximizing value. So they're going to find you the best bang for your buck. In fact, right now on my Game Time app, I'm looking for Pacers tickets, an opportunity to see the best players in the NBA. And I'm finding tickets in club level for $23. And there's no hidden fees. Game Time Picks. Curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. All-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front, which again, no surprise fees at checkout. You get your seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage. Your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code ON3 ON3 for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Let's talk LSU Tiger recruiting. Number 9 ranked quarterback in the country, Bo Bentley. His recruitment's been blowing up this spring, but over the weekend, he was in the Bayou visiting LSU. What's the latest on Bentley's recruitment as the Tigers kind of ratchet up that heat for him?
Well, Coach Joe Sloan's built a fast relationship with him since offering. He feels really comfortable around Coach Sloan. Getting on LSU's campus, he got a chance to see firsthand why these Tigers quarterbacks are so successful, from Joe Burrow to Jayden Daniels to now Nussmeier. He sees it as a place that he could be prolific under center, playing alongside some of the best athletes and biggest, baddest offensive line in college football. We know that LSU recruits. We know that Brian Kelly historically recruits and is in part developing the best offensive lines in the country. LSU certainly can boast that as well. Oklahoma was the leader coming in. Ohio State's also in the picture. LSU in the thick of this. They want to get him back for an official visit. He's already been to Oklahoma twice this calendar year. I'd still probably give them the odds, but LSU giving Bo Bentley a lot to think about.
All right, Steve, you made big news over the weekend. You put in a new prediction for LSU to land one of its top wide receiver targets.
Yeah, the number 4 receiver in the On3 industry, Ethan Booby Feaster from DeSoto, Texas. He was on campus for a couple days. He told me that LSU's number 1. With that, my On3 RPM reflects it. LSU, the leader. I like where they stand. He talked about the culture. He talked about all the great wide receivers that they've had. And he talked about the way that the LSU coaching staff just cares for their players. He thinks that helps bring the best out of them. He loves that culture. He's also from Louisiana, so it's a program that he can really vibe with.
All right. And LSU, we had Shea Dixon on this channel just yesterday talking about a potential banner year at wide receiver for LSU. So let's talk number 1 overall, Tristan Keys. He's made several visits this weekend. Who do you see right now at the top of this recruitment?
Well, LSU's in the top 4, in my opinion. I talked to him this weekend. Alabama and Tennessee are certainly at the top of the list as well. And then you have Texas A&M. But there's other suitors, Michigan, Miami, Auburn. So this is a really fluid process. He's taking his time. He's looking for a place that's going to develop him best. And he knows LSU has that track record. And that's why it's one of his childhood favorites. He's excited to get back on campus and spend a couple days with this coaching staff. It's just been a blue chip week for LSU. You had Jamarian Carlton, one of the most heralded defensive linemen in the country, out of Temple, Texas, on campus this weekend. He wants to come back for a game, but he loved his time with Coach Peoples and the staff. Joel Wyatt is one of the most coveted athletes in the land. He's the number 1 ranked athlete in the country out of Tennessee. Some schools like him at wide receiver, Josh, some defensive end. LSU likes him at safety, and he likes Coach Jake Olson. He said he will be back in Baton Rouge soon. Zayden Krempen's a 4-star offensive lineman from Prosper, Texas, that also had a great experience, including spending time with Will Campbell, who's going to hear his name called high in the NFL draft. What Coach Brad Davis and company do at the point of attack year in and year out is real attracted to him. LSU is one of the favorites alongside Michigan, Texas, and Clemson and SMU for Zayden Krempen.
All right. Oregon and Dan Lanning hosted some elite recruits this weekend, but by far the headliner of this group was Ohio State 5-star wide receiver commitment Chris Henry Jr. back in Eugene. Steve, what does it all mean?
Well, I've gone from thinking Chris Henry Jr. flipping from Ohio State being a long shot to I could certainly see it happen. He has spent a lot of time at Oregon. I think he's going to come back again before his official visit. So I think we got multiple visits still in store for Chris Henry Jr. at Oregon before he makes a final decision. The Ducks have always been considered the biggest challenger to Ohio State. Why Ohio State? Because the way they prepare receivers, not just when they get drafted, but the way they're prepared to step in the NFL and be difference makers and be among the best players at the position. That's a salute to Brian Hartline. That's why he's committed to the Buckeyes. But Oregon, he has been there quite a bit. Folks that spent time with him in Eugene are telling me terrific things about Oregon's position here. And I think that I could certainly see him at Oregon when all said and done at the end of this cycle.
Wow. All right. No flip pick in for you yet on the recruiting prediction machine for Chris Henry Jr., but you did put a pick in for another top 10 wide receiver to end up an Oregon Duck.
Yeah, Jalen Lott out of the Lone Star State, a very explosive pass catcher that some schools like in the secondary, like Georgia. So terrific dual position athlete that Oregon covers at the wide receiver position. He's also going to high jump and long jump at the school of his choice. I thought Oregon led coming into the visit to Oregon over the weekend. He told me they lead coming out. Now he's at Ohio State this week. He's at Georgia. He was recently at LSU. You got Texas in there, but it's Oregon setting the pace right now for Jalen Lott. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the next in the fold for Dan Lanning and his staff.
How you feeling about Caden Dixon Wyatt? He's down there in California at Mater Dei High School, 6'1", 180. I know he's a major target for the Ducks as well.
Yeah, I was with Caden Dixon Wyatt this weekend, and Oregon leads. I'm close to putting in an on-3 RPM for Caden Dixon Wyatt to land with the Ducks. He also likes Ohio State and USC, Alabama, and Texas on the radar, but it's Oregon setting the pace. He recently met new receivers coach Ross Douglas. They've really hit it off, so they're in a great spot with him. And another receiver that Oregon's in the top 2 or 3 for is Messiah Hampton. He's an electric pass catcher out of New York. He was wearing an Oregon beanie this weekend while competing in the overtime OT7 Spring Football League. Miami, Ohio State, Penn State, some of the others Messiah Hampton likes. But Ross Douglas was recruiting him at Syracuse. He's also very high on Syracuse. Ross Douglas was recruiting him at Syracuse. He's at Oregon. That relationship has really transitioned. He's excited about the Ducks, looks forward to visiting soon.
All right, the last player I want to ask you about for the weekend, and you guys can go to scoopduck.com. They're covering everybody that was in town. But number 1 linebacker, Tyler Atkinson. He's from the state of Georgia. He was supposed to make it there, I believe, in January, but he got sick, so now he is there in mid-March. Tyler Atkinson, a lot of people got him penciled into this UGA class, but should people kind of slow down with that?
Well, the flu bug that bit everybody kept him home in January. But yes, Oregon is emerging as a contender for Tyler Atkinson. We said as much would happen on the Whiparound last week coming into this visit. Dan Lanning's been recruiting him since he was the defensive coordinator at Georgia. They FaceTime a lot. They have a great relationship. Now he got to come out and see it for himself, why Oregon's having so much success, why players love playing there. He had a fantastic visit. Now he's been to Georgia 3 times already this calendar year. Countless times throughout his process, talks to Coach Schumann as much as anybody, trusts Coach Smart. Georgia's still one of the front runners, if not the lead dog in this recruitment for Tyler Atkinson. But Oregon moving into the equation alongside the likes of Auburn, Ohio State, Clemson. So Tyler Atkinson's still going through his process. Going to take official visits. Oregon trying to get on that list. It was a great visit. He said he had to come out there and see it for himself, and he absolutely loved it.
The USC Trojans now have the number 1 class in America after an exciting weekend that we saw 4 commitments in 4 days. But Steve, Lincoln Riley is not finished. Who could be the next to commit to USC?
Well, they're strongly in the mix for quite a few touted prospects. The one that I think could see his process winding down as he's been able to make a lot of visits and been out talking to coaches for quite some time is 4-star running back Deshaun Rideau. My on-3 RPM has been on USC since the fall, and I continue to hear good things about the Trojans' position. Another prospect that I continue to hear great things about where USC stands, I'm not saying a decision is imminent right now, but USC, I think, is setting the pace for 4-star linebacker Talanoa Illy. He was just back at Oregon this weekend. Those two are duking it out. There's a few others in play, but USC is doing a fantastic job with Talanoa Illy. And then one more prospect I want to mention, Josh, Haven Finney Jr., a touted cornerback from in-state that reclassified from 2027 to 2026. I saw him this weekend at the Overtime OT7 series in Dallas. Talked to him about his process. LSU is making moves with him, but so is USC. A lot of buzz about USC with Havon Finney Jr., keeping him home, joining a class that ranks number 1 nationally. I think that they're in a good position as he goes through his process with upcoming visits to LSU and Michigan. But he set his summer visit for USC for an official. He was there earlier this month for their huge junior day. The Trojans in a good spot for Rideau, Illy, and Finney Jr., among others.
Steve, today is St. Patrick's Day, which means we got to talk some Notre Dame recruiting. And Marcus Freeman this morning tweeted out, quote, "Happy Pot of Gold Day." So explain to the people what Pot of Gold Day is and why it is special for Notre Dame.
Well, St. Patrick's Day is the holiday of the Irish, and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish have made it their day on the recruiting trail where they start setting the tone with coveted targets in the rising junior class. This has been something that's been an exciting day year in and year out, and Notre Dame ultimately lands several of these guys that they offer on Pot of Gold Day. They offered 2 legacy recruits, Josh, that I think that they're in really good position for. Julius Jones Jr., a dynamic receiver out of Fort Lauderdale, St. Thomas Aquinas, was offered by Notre Dame today. He told me that Notre Dame has been on the checklist for him before he even put pads and a helmet on. Getting the offer was a great feeling. He's watched his dad's highlights up there. Now he has a chance to go create his own legacy in the gold helmet. He said it was surreal. They also offered legacy recruit Richie Flanagan, a defensive lineman from Wisconsin. His dad, Jim Flanagan, played at Notre Dame before a 10-year career in the NFL. Josh, he was on the field when Notre Dame knocked off Florida State in 1993. Richie Flanagan is a guy that Notre Dame wants on the field when they're pushing for another national championship down the road. And I think that's what's so even more exciting about Pot of Gold Day today. I think this is the most excitement I've seen around Notre Dame for young prospects. So oftentimes these prospects are getting to know Notre Dame when they're offering them going into their junior year. These guys followed Notre Dame closely at the end of the year, saw him play in the national title game. Marcus Freeman has become one of the faces of the sport, and the Irish are really rating with these top recruits for the season they had, the guys that are becoming some of the marquee names in the sport. And then Marcus Freeman and this staff are quickly able to point towards the recent history and then all the tradition that this program has, along with the prestigious academics. Recruits are buzzing about Notre Dame today, and we're all over it on the On3 platform and Blue and Gold Illustrated. That will do it for today's episode of the Wiltfong Whiparound. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit like and subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel so you're up to date on the new episodes of the Inside Scoop with Josh Newberg, the Wiltfong Whiparound. And we will be back on Thursday for another episode. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.